If you somehow manage to scrape the money together and you're thinking of getting a PS5, please take this video into account, and I really do urge you not to buy it. But let me explain why. So what's going on, everyone? My name is Zeppelin and welcome back to the channel. I am very sorry I've not made a video in a while. The college work is getting the better of me and I cannot promise that I'll be back to regular videos anytime soon. However, I assure you that I am still working on stuff and putting content out on Twitch whenever I can. So I do recommend you check me out on there if you want to see my content more often. But today, as you've seen by the beginning of the video, I wanted to talk to you about the PlayStation 5, and the title will kind of give you an inclination as to what specifically about the PS5 I'm going to talk about, and that is the problems with the PS5 and therefore why I urge you not to buy it. Before we go into the technical problems with the console itself, I feel like it's important to mention the market, as the market currently for the console is so bad that it could be considered a problem in of itself. Due to a worldwide shortage of silicone of a high enough quality to manufacture chips, many consoles such as the PlayStation 5 or Xbox One, or Xbox Series X, should I say, are struggling to be manufactured, and this has crossed over into the graphics card market as well, which has been something for me that's been a huge problem as I have been trying to upgrade my setup. So the shortage in silicone is leading to a shortage in these products, so whenever they release these products, scalpers are realizing that these products will have a high resale value as they're in high demand but in short supply. So they mass buy them and then sell them on sites such as eBay or any other resale website for an extortionate amount. You cannot find an RTX 3090 at the moment for anywhere under $2,000, which is simply ridiculous considering its release price, I believe from Nvidia, was around $700 to $800. That is a huge increase, and the same is happening with the PlayStation 5. It retailed at about £500 and now it's hard to find one under £800. However, it has gotten slightly better, as before you could not find one under $1,000. Which begs the question, before we get into the technical problems of the console, is the console even worth that price at the moment? You look at how much it costs in the market versus the struggle it would be to even get one at retail price versus what's actually available on the console at the moment. There's not actually much new available to you as a player when stepping into the next generation of games. Not much has come out yet to really show you how well this console can perform. What you'll be mainly doing on this console, I assure you, is playing your old PS4 games. So for the struggle and the price that you would pay to get the console now for what you will get on the console, that in itself really does not make it worth it to get the console at the moment, because once this silicone crisis clears up, which I'm sure it will hopefully within the next year or so, and even if it doesn't, they'll find a way to make more consoles. Yeah, but more consoles will be made and the price of them will go down and they will be easier to find. You'll get them under their retail value eventually within the next year or so, which, as we're going to go into more problems in this video, it does look like it's going to be another year or so before we really see what this console and what the next generation of gaming and the next generation of graphics cards are all about. So now we're going to get into some technical problems and things that you'll find on the console, and I've alluded to this already in this video, is that there just is not that much out for the console yet. And the reason there is not much out for the console yet, and the reason why I believe there is not going to be, is because of COVID. COVID halting production all over the world has not only had an effect in the manufacturing of consoles, but it has definitely had an effect on the manufacturing of games and any other products that were due to be released on these next generation of consoles. While we did see some good titles come out in 2020, these were titles that were already nearly finished by the time the pandemic rolled around and were titles that could be finished from home. So while we had an interesting year of games in 2020, 2021 is going to be the year of the games that were still in maybe early or mid-production when the pandemic rolled around, and there might not have been any capability to get those games finished. Plus, there is also, with every new generation of console that comes out, a little bit of wait time before we see the true capability of that console. So these two factors combined means that it's probably not worthwhile for you to be picking up this console in 2021, maybe late 2021 when the market clears up. But you're probably best off leaving it until 2022 when there are probably more games available, or at least in the pipeline, ready to be finished, and there are more consoles available to buy at a reasonable price. So now we're going to go into the technical problems with this console, and believe me, there is a few. Now, of course, I'm going to be talking from personal experience. However, I have seen many other people have similar issues to this, so I believe it is a wider problem that's happening with the console and its peripherals, and I feel like it is important to make a video on it so that people know when they're buying this console, while they may be buying into the future, they're not future proofing. You'll see what I mean. So with this console advertising, it can run at 120 Hz. It presents a lot of confusion to the average consumer. Many consumers have been sold that you need HDMI 2.1 to do 120 Hz on a monitor for your games that are capable of 120 Hz. It's also actually important to note in this that the console sits at 60 Hz until a game registers that it can run at 120 Hz, and the PlayStation will subsequently run at 120 Hz. But as I was saying, the common misconception is that you need HDMI 2.1, which you do not. HDMI 2.0 and even HDMI 1.4 will run 120 Hz at least, but will not run it at 4K. It is a very common misconception that even a lot of people that I've talked to in customer supports have told me they firmly believe that you need HDMI 2.1 to ever hit any frames above 60 on any console, but this is blatantly not true. My monitor, for example, that's right in front of me that I record all my games from and play all my games from, is a 1.4 Hz monitor that can push up to 165 frames from the display port. However, on the HDMI port, I've plugged it into my laptop and computer plenty of times, and it has run 144 frames, no problem, meaning that it is capable. And the reason I believe that people are going to have a problem with this is because the console won't push out 120 frames correctly. When I was playing Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War, I knew that the game could push 120 frames. However, no matter what I did with the console, I could not get my monitor to run at 120 frames. I contacted PlayStation customer support, went through multiple of their support team during this COVID time, which, as you know, any customer service waiting line thing, you'd be waiting at least an hour, so it was hell. But I managed to get through and talk to them and tell them all the problems that I was having in regards to this particular issue and run through all the troubleshooting options that they gave me, and they could not correct it. So it went to a higher up technical team months ago, which have still never gotten back to me, but they are speculating what I originally speculated was the problem, which is what I told customer support. My monitor does not natively tell whatever device that is plugged into it to output at 120. The monitor will only output 120 when the device that is running can tell the monitor that it can run at 120 or 140 or whatever it is. However, the way the PlayStation 5 works is that it tries to detect whether a monitor can run 120 or 140, so it's not telling the monitor it can run it, it's waiting for the monitor to tell it. So both of these devices are here waiting to tell each other that they can push this out, and no device is actually pushing it out. The reason why I speculate this is because people have managed to fix this problem by plugging in things such as, I think they're EIDIs, but I could be completely wrong on that. Pretty much any HDMI pass-through that they put through that can do 120, it gets the monitor to run the PlayStation 5 at 120 frames. That's because the pass-through does the telling for the monitor and the PlayStation. I know this was a problem that really bugged me, is because I invested money in this monitor for this PlayStation, and when the PlayStation would not output these frames, this was before I got a proper PC, which I now do mostly PC gaming, I felt like I had wasted a lot of money, and I'm sure many people did as well, who even maybe got 240 frame monitors trying to get the best they could out of their console and find that they're not getting anything at all. I do have faith that this problem would be fixed in future, but it is just something to keep in mind for the more hardcore technical player, that they may be very disappointed with how the console works in terms of frame rate. And now with PCs becoming more and more prevalent, I know graphics cards aren't becoming more cheap, but PCs are there to run at 140 frames easily, and it could be with technology that's way older than the PlayStation. So in terms of it actually working, The PlayStation is really lacking behind in that regard. Another massive problem is actually a problem that I've made a video on before, which is in regards to the PlayStation 5 DualSense controller. Now, I did make a video before talking about how the PlayStation 5 DualSense controller was creating a lot of problems for me in regards to the joysticks. The joysticks were becoming unresponsive, the curvature of them was becoming weird on screen, the input was just strange, and I was going to send it back to PlayStation to get it repaired, but I had such hassle getting through with PlayStation, I've borderline given up and still have not sent back the controller. And the problem with the controller for the most part only got worse. The only thing that could temporarily fix it was by blowing into the crevices of the joystick, which for some reason made the input a little better for a while before it would go back to the way it was. I'm not quite sure as to why that was the case, but that was what was happening. And since then I have read about many other problems people are having, with such as the haptic feedback becoming weird, the L2 and R2 buttons beginning to break due to the motor inside of them, and then stick drift becoming very common in the joystick of the controllers. And this will present itself as a major issue for PlayStation and Sony. One of the things that made the PlayStation 4 controller and PlayStation controllers up until now stand out in the market is that for the most part they were very reliable. I've mentioned plenty of times before that third-party controllers usually had some form of stick drift or some problem like that was so frustrating, especially since Sony made such a good controller. But this controller that they have released with this console now does not seem to be operating very well in terms of longevity. While it may have all the bells and whistles on it of a futuristic controller, it is definitely not lasting as long as it should be. And the reason why I mention this when saying there are PlayStation 5 problems and not to buy a PlayStation 5 is that I think this problem is becoming so widespread that they are going to do another release of the console, or at least these accessories, fixing these issues. I don't believe that they're going to push on to year 2 or year 3 of the console having such broken items, especially when usually halfway through the life cycle they'll do like a slim or a pro version of the console like they usually do. There is going to be fixes put in place on a physical level, and these fixes are going to become the norm in what you buy. Same way as that when the PlayStation 4 came around, there was a new controller released in 2016 that became the normal controller, that changed very little but was a more reliable controller. So anyone who invests now will be disappointed that probably within a year or so we're going to be hearing about a new version of the console coming out, or at least a version that is the exact same but has fixed a lot of the issues that I've mentioned in this video. Of course, then to conclude, we have a bunch of other small issues that I found, like the disk drive sometimes being really loud, the fan sometimes really kicking in for a period of 5 seconds to the point it's rumbling the table and then quieting down again. I know it might be a fast trick of cooling that they're doing, but there's a lot of small things about this console that just make me worried and makes me think that this console just should not have come out in 2020. I saw a reviewer talk about the console and why he believed it was released too early, and I can't remember the name of the reviewer, but the more and more I have used the console, the more I am in agreement with what he has said. This console, I believe, was not ready to come out to the market, even regardless of COVID or not, and COVID has only made things 10 times worse. There are problems with the console, problems with the peripheral, no games being made, and a struggle to make the console itself due to a shortage of components. That is a lot of problems to deal with as a manufacturer, and while it's not really the fault of Sony for some of those problems, they still should have taken them into account and let the market wait. It's not like excitement was going to die down for the console. Now, I was one of those ones that really wanted the console to come out when it came out, and I was really excited for its release, so I get why they pushed it. But they should have just held out rather than having this situation now where scalpers are making thousands off the back of Sony while the consumer is getting nothing. And the same thing is happening across the board with graphics cards as well, which will all hopefully die down in future. But for the moment, people do need to be worried about the state of gaming and video games and components. It's a problem that has been underplayed up until now, but the fact that even the American President Joe Biden has launched an inquiry into the shortage of these components shows that this could become a major issue worldwide, and hopefully it gets fixed soon. But anyway, that's all I had to say in this video. What are your opinions on the PS5? Have you got one yet? And if so, what problems are you having? Make sure to let me know down in the comments below. I'm interested to see what you think, whether you agree with me or completely disagree with me, and absolutely love the console. So thank you very much for watching. I'll see you in the next one, and I hope you can get a console soon if you're looking for one, and if not, I think you're wise to hold out. Peace.